Welcome to this week's episode of the Church Collective podcast. My name's Ryan, and in this episode, myself and Chris had the opportunity to talk to Jonsal from Elevation Worship. I think you're going to love it, so here we go.
So we just released our brand new record, Lion. And so it's something that Pastor Steven, Chris, some of the team have been working on for the last, honestly, like year and a half. I feel like some of the songs go back from when they started writing. And so, yeah, we just have, we broke that up into 2 nights of worship, and we were able to kind of get with our church back in one room together and just go for it with just the brand new songs, introducing some of the new songs that we did on the record, and then also just spending some time together, just fostering what we love, the culture of worship, culture of God's presence. And so, yeah, we were really pumped on that. So that's a lot of where our church is at too, since it's just released. But they've been living with some of these songs for a time. So it feels like we get to celebrate with just the rest of our community who hasn't been a part.
Sure. I guess that was my question too, like kind of speak to what's been the process of developing these songs. I'm assuming it's all been kind of in the midst of quarantine, not quarantine, kind of quarantine. Like what's it been like?
Yeah. So, I mean, the team that's been writing, we've had, Brandon come and help. We've had Pat, who's been involved in some of the writing. And so they've just kind of gotten together and worked on a few of these songs and just got them to this point where, hey, it may feel like a big wide range of what the music in one collection feels like. But I mean, that's just been a little bit of the process, even just getting behind the theme of this, which is, lion and kind of even the artwork being a lamb. I feel like a beautiful picture of what this album sonically kind of takes you through. It's a little bit of that juxtaposition. And we're just kind of trying to look through the lens of, hey, God can meet us in both spaces, and he looks different, and he, is the character of who he is can kind of be represented through some of this style of music. So
that's great.
Yeah, that's been a lot of the process getting to this point with that record.
What venue did you record it in?
So we are here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we met at our broadcast location. So we're over at Valentine, and we recorded both of those nights there.
It's hard. I was actually at your the recording when you guys did the arena where Charlotte Hornets play. Is it Hornets play?
Yeah, it's called Spectrum now. I think it was I forget the name right before, but yeah, we did 2 recordings there.
Yeah, that was an awesome. So you guys are just recording in your actual your own venue now?
Pretty much. So we're set up to where we're able to, even at church and at home, we're kind of sending a broadcast out to our online community. And so audio wise, we're set up to kind of capture any weekend and that's kind of some of what like the blessing looked like. We sang that we introduced that on a weekend at church. And then they ended up deciding, this probably, should go out, and we just need to release what God did in that moment, in that weekend. So same with this project. We'll record in-house, and we do everything here at the church.
Do you like get your guests to come in all at the same time, or is it different? Are they like spaced out?
Yeah, so we're set up right now where we've had, we did the collaboration album with Mab City. And so that was bringing everyone in for a week, writing together, workshopping together. And then right now, currently where we're at just with church, it's like bringing some friends over through the weekends and having them, whether they've written with Pastor Steven and Chris, or they'll introduce, some of the songs that had been maybe worked on in the year prior. And so it just depends on where we are, but we're kind of back in the flow of like weekends and having our friends come and help us co-lead at the church.
Yeah. How could like a local church do a smaller scale of that? It seems like you guys are very open with who comes in and out, and collaborating. And I don't really see that on church like level? Like how could that translate?
Yeah, I honestly feel like if it's serving the vision of your house, and I would really encourage almost that be the priority and not just the goal of like collaboration and doing music in a new way that might shift some of the expectation of your context in church. But I think if leadership is open to that, and leadership is open to, hey, this may serve our community and our people really well, to bring guests in, or maybe to bring in another style and another genre, and that could shake up some of the culture. And I feel like that's the healthiest place to kind of be within collaboration. And so what we've seen is, with just some of our friends who are leading, there's some really strong anointing or really powerful songs that are really like hitting home. And so that has been important to open up the space for that to happen, and allow God to kind of come in and speak maybe in a new way through some of these moments. And so I would just encourage, if that's going to serve your church well, having a chat and saying, hey, I'd love to partner with, what you're doing or how you're growing or what, your team is winning at, and maybe getting that infused in another local context. So,
yeah.
I'd love to pick your brain a little bit. You talk about like the online community, and I'm just like really fascinated with like worship leadership, but then people like joining worship, like when we're leading people in worship online. I'd love to kind of just hear, like, do you thinking about that while you're leading, knowing that there's, so many people streaming in? Maybe just speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, obviously, as this has probably been chatted about so many times, but when 2020 hit, it caused everything to kind of change. And I feel like everybody has their version and story of that. But what I'm so thankful for in our church here is, Pastor Stephen years ago was, casting that we set almost an expectation for ourselves to make sure that the broadcast was at a level of excellence and that we could serve people who were only watching from outside of Charlotte. And so little did we know, a few years later, that would turn into all and the only way we could serve our people. And so to go from 20 campuses to just strictly online was a big shift. And I think that it not only taught us the importance of serving those that, are on the other side of a screen, but it reinforced a lot of the heart behind that as well. And so hearing stories, people sending in just testimonies of what that impact has been, or what a song, how it's hitting and how it's ministered. And so I'd love to try and always remind my team, and just, whenever I'm visiting at a campus, and say, hey, you may never understand or never imagine like someone across the globe, but they need what we're doing. And so to keep that in mind, and to keep the Spirit, just a conversation with the Holy Spirit, to say, hey, Lord, even though it's technology, even though I get that there's a performance aspect with the camera, there literally is someone's life on the other end that needs this song, and they need us to prepare the way that we do, and they need us to be clear about our message. And so that's been a big cultural shift, but I feel like it's reinforced in the best way. And so we care a lot about our global audience right now.
Yeah. Do you feel like you guys have shifted? Like, you guys have obviously been trendsetters for this for a long time. Do you guys feel like there's an even bigger emphasis on online now, or has it kind of settled back into the campuses plus online, or like what's that tension like for you guys?
Yeah, with the amount that it's grown in our church community online, and the presence online, it's been a big focus. And so to see the need, it has to be, we have to rise to that, and also serve them in that sense and capacity. And so we've put a lot of our staff and a lot of our team and resources towards what the online experience looks like. And so it's two in the same. It's not just about the local room anymore. It's about serving someone in their living room. Yeah. And so we're trying to balance at the same time. Hey, we have 9 campuses here, even in Charlotte. And so getting people back plugged into their groups, plugged into serving, is a big value of ours. But to answer that question, like, we for sure put a lot of focus into online experience.
Sure.
Something I've actually been wanting to talk to you guys, you and your wife, for a while. We have a lot of mutual friends, so I know like kind of your story.
Okay.
But I would love to hear, because at my home church, my wife is on staff with me, and so I would love to hear just like how you like navigate being on staff and ministering alongside your wife. You know,
Yeah.
because a lot of people do that, and it's an interesting dynamic.
It is the greatest blessing that I never knew to expect. And so the fact that, our story is interesting because we met here at the church. I moved from San Antonio to be a part of Elevation through the apprenticeship. And so in that, she was almost, a mentor to me, just getting involved into the church. And so little did I know, okay, God, you had a clear plan of us to be together. And so the fact that we get to serve now is like I said, one of the biggest blessings I never knew I could experience. And so what I do love about our context specifically is we've in seasons led together. And what I loved about almost the craziness of 2020 is like more than ever, we were leading side by side than we had in the last few years. And so on one end, to see a unique dynamic of us singing songs and ministering together, it's like we can kind of just gauge each other's like direction, and we can sense like, oh, I'm supporting you where I need to, or I'm stepping in where I need to on that end. And then in seasons we've led campuses and on our own. And so getting on the platform as leaders and individuals, I think is a really important value for us as well, because God has gifted us with our own strengths and with our own style and our own leadership. And so balancing that has been fun. Right now, we're kind of doing half and half throughout the month. And so we'll lead together twice a month, and then we'll lead individually because we're in a support role within our church as far as our worship department. So that's been good. I think there is so much blessing in honoring each other, even on a platform like that. It's a different way to show love, and it's a different way to lead together. It's like bringing that, I think God honors as well. And so, yeah, it's been a wild journey in our 5 years so far.
Do you guys talk about it at home, or do you like decide to like not talk about it at home?
We definitely bring it home. That's the balance I'm talking about. It's like, hey, if I feel like I didn't do well, or if I feel like I messed something up, I don't feel like a pressure, but I think being able to just express that, like, hey, this wasn't my best, or I feel bummed out, getting to be encouraged in real time, feeling something together is helpful. But too much of that is going to be way too much. So, trying to balance that has been our journey as well.
I'd love to hear just your story a little bit, like coming from Texas and getting involved. Like I'm sure there's some massive stuff for young worship leaders to glean from that. So could you just tell us like how'd you get into all this?
So I grew up, born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. My grandfather was a pastor of a small independent Baptist Spanish church, and I don't speak Spanish. So this is the extreme that I was coming from. I understand it. I was able to pick it up over the 14 years of being at the church. But, my family's been musical in some sense, and like they've sung together, and my brothers play guitar and piano. And so it's definitely in the blood. And so I've always kind of been exposed to music, but through that, I felt like God, calling my life, and not in that's such a weird phrase to me, but just in a way where it's like obvious, hey, you have something in you that I would love for you to use. Let's see what that looks like. And so through the years, I felt like, okay, like I'm going to start leading worship in youth group, and kind of that story of getting my reps and starting to lead in that context. But at 22, I applied for the worship apprenticeship here at Elevation, which changed my life in the sense of I had no experience of kind of a bigger platform or musical excellence, and just kind of arranging and leading teams at that level. So I felt like it really helped just where I was and looking for. And so, just the process, I came on staff at Elevation. And so 8.5 years later, here I am. And so it's been a crazy journey of growth in the best way. Like, you know, we care so much about standards because we want to serve people so well. And so in that, it's been a healthy challenge to say, hey, your musicality, has it grown from year to year? Your skill, like as a vocalist, has it grown? Your awareness of how to gauge and lead a congregation, has that changed? And so I've felt that year after year. And I still feel that same attitude, like I want to continue to grow in the context that I'm serving.
Yeah. What kind of growth engines have you used for like musicality or leadership? Like, I'd love to hear, like, what do you guys do? How do you guys make sure you're actually growing musically? Like, you have any go-to resources?
Yeah, well, you know, the awesome aspect of a larger team is we have our music directors that are on staff. And so they really help kind of set the standard for when music is written, when parts are kind of established, that's what we do. And so just even that level of accountability and that level of just like, oh, this is where I need to kind of work towards within my tone. And so we kind of challenge our team with a lot of that. And then we use them as resources and tools to kind of coach and mentor. So same with our worship leaders. It's like we're so blessed to have a vocal director here at the church. And so even that, like one-on-one vocal lessons, and it's a crazy blessing to be able to offer that to even our volunteers and those that are wanting to learn to get better within our church. So
yeah. What's your week to week look like? Like, I'm sure people would love to hear, like, what does it look like to work at Elevation?
Yeah, it's very different for so many of us, but my wife and I serve as, you know, some of the pastors, and we handle some of the pastoral care within our worship department. So we're developers and coaches for our staff. And then, you know, that trickles down into like our contract worship leaders, our volunteers, band members when we're out just visiting different locations. And so that's a certain part of the week, you know, spending times with one-on-ones and just checking in, helping coach and navigate just platform development. And then the other side is, you know, we're involved with Elevation Worship. And so that could look like, you know, one-offs or some of the touring or some of the recording and being involved on projects on that side of it. So that's a little bit of my week to week, just depending on who we are.
Sorry, my mute button was not working.
Okay.
What's like, just to get a little nerdy, like what mic do you prefer, and like what in-ears do you prefer, and what is your in-ear mix? Like, what do you like in your in-ear mix?
All right, let me start with the in-ear situation. I have had some 64s that I cracked my right ear. And I've been rocking those for about a year. So I put a little gaff tape, put a little clear nail polish, hold it together. I've kind of always just been like the super minimal, just 3-driver 64. That's kind of my go-to. I've replaced them like one time, but to build a mix, I'm super bass for key reference. That's where I live. Ton of bass, ton of actual keys, my vocal. And then, you know, I really love like a what is it? Like front of house type of monitor mix, which is pretty complicated. But if I'm not being complicated, I'm like, just give me bass, keys, my vocal, click, and I'll just make it work. It's interesting because we'll go from like a stereo mix at the broadcast to you know, a mono mix at just different locations or depending on where we're at. And so even that, I've kind of like adjusted some of the expectation of, I'm going to keep it super minimal. But from a mic standpoint, that's a great question. I don't even know. I wouldn't even be able to answer kind kind of on the road, they have a set for all of us. And so, but I can't remember the name of it right now.
How about in the studio? Are you like into like studio mics or anything, or just whatever's in front of you?
Whatever's in front of me, honestly. I'm like, hey, if it's giving me the vibe and the tone, helping with that, I'm good. So
what's your best embarrassing story as far as like something just going wrong on stage?
One of my favorites would be, I don't even remember the year, but we were doing a Joyce Meyer one-off leading for one of her conferences. And I'm singing Won't Stop Now, kind of introing and getting into the song, that maybe the chorus, we're at the chorus. Lo and behold, our drummer's drum shield completely fell over.
That's the one that's online, right? The video?
We've seen this one. Everybody's seen it.
That is it. I think the most embarrassing thing is the fact that I had no clue, other than everyone's looking at me in that moment like, yo, did you just see what happened? So finally, like, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what's going on. And so the fact that he kept time and, it was that crash landed so perfectly is probably one of the most embarrassing things. I'm oblivious to it. I was like, I need to learn a lesson from this. Like, take better note of what's happening behind me, in front of me. So that's a good one. I love that story. We don't let that one go either.
Watch that. See, look for your facial expression.
Yeah, that and the blonde hair alone is probably equally embarrassing. So I got the buzz cut with the blonde.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris. No, me. All right. What advice would you have for, I mean, I'm sure there's so many people that want to follow your path, maybe not to, well, I mean, some of them I'm sure would love to go to Elevation too, but like follow your path to like be a worship leader. What advice do you have for that, 18-year-old getting their reps in youth ministry? They want to go into full-time worship pastoring. Like what would you tell them?
This is an important question that I feel like needs to be talked about so much more. I would tell my 22-year-old self, again, my 18-year-old self, like, it is worth you falling in love with Jesus. And that is not an over spiritual thing. You're not going to be able to serve and help people without you being okay. And so we all come in with baggage. We all come in with just our stuff that we deal with. And so I just think that you can't skip from point A at 18 years old to you're a 45-year-old with experience and wisdom and biblical knowledge and pastoral, everything and skill. Like, you have to like start at that ground level, just making the priority the thing. And so it's not about what you can accomplish. It's not about the record that you produce. It's not about the songs. It's not about the highest level of execution if you don't have the substance. And so I would absolutely say, like, it's not a cliche. It's worth it. Like, you won't be able to minister without just you being okay first, and without your love for Jesus being the most evident thing. And so everything flows from there. The oil flows from there. The performance flows from there. You being used is kind of just the overflow. And I used to think those words were very like, they're going over my head, feels a little cliche. And I'm starting to see now, being, serving a few years, like, no, that matters. That really does matter. So that's what I would encourage anyone who's in that spot.
Yeah. What would you define like a worship pastor? Like, what does that mean for you?
Yeah. We're shepherds. And at the same time, we're sheep. And so coming to terms with, hey, like, I know where I'm at. I know what my testimony might be. Here is an example of how I can kind of give that and offer it to God. And he's like, turn something around, right? So we start there, but a worship pastor cares for those that are entrusted to them. But that comes with, hey, your team may have desires to grow. Your team may have desires to serve, and like creating a safe space is the thing. Challenging when there needs to be some challenging. Uplift. These are all the things and qualities that I feel like a worship pastor should operate in. And so, yeah, that's that. Like, again, keeping the priority of Jesus Christ in a world where it can just so be about performance is what I feel worship pastors, should operate in. Yeah, that's how I would define it.
Yeah, awesome. Do you have any like books or anything like that have like really impacted you that would be good for people to check out?
I don't have off the top of my head. I've been The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Have you all read that?
Yeah, that's a great book.
I think that's been a recent one that's helped me to slow down. Again, to prioritize the quiet and the Sabbath and making sure that it's not just go, perform, execute. Like, slowing down with an understanding that that's okay is great. And so that's probably one I would recommend.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Right.
All right, this is a complete different subject, like off the wall, but are you aware of like people talking about how stylish you are?
No, but that's a compliment.
Okay, because I saw a thread on some worship forum, and somebody said this guy's so far ahead of style you can't even tell if he's in style or not.
Interesting.
And there was a whole thread about like how like you would be like so far ahead that like 2 years later people would start be wearing like the things you're wearing.
Funny thing about that. I just turned 30 this past year, but look, let me show you this. Look at these dad shoes right here.
Okay.
That's not stylish. That's New Balance. That's full on dad mode, and I'm not a dad, so I don't know. That's a compliment, but I love that. That's hilarious. I don't know that I would call myself fashion forward like that.
It'll be
I'm trying to decide if I'm like full on dad mode, and I'm asking Jenna all the time. So, and we've gotten to the point in our marriage where we're matching every day. So that's fun. That's a fun thing.
Are you into it, or you just kind of let it happen?
No, I do love fashion. I do love like just streetwear brands, but I don't know. It gets a bit pricey, so I can try my best with what I'm inspired by.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do. I mean, if I would kind of define my style, would be street style. So I love like Rude, Fear of God, anything like New York, LA, those styles of kind of the extremes of fashion. So yeah.
2 years from now, we'll look back and the New Balance on. Everybody will be on the stage with New Balance. Like we'll have record of it.
It'll be the 90s dad vibe. So maybe we can call it here.
When you visit Southern California, like what spots do you frequent? Like what shops or boutiques do you try to go to?
Oh, is Dover Street Market in Southern California?
I think so. It's either there or the San Francisco area.
There you go.
Okay. Well, I haven't been there, but I would love to pop in. I'm really loving, like, have you heard of Ruigi? It's a fun, pretty expensive, but that's kind of like the vibe. I don't know that he has a flagship store, but love that kind of vibe.
Thank you so much for being a part of this week's episode. We would love to connect with you over on Instagram or TikTok, really is where we spend a lot of our time. Look up me, Ryan Lochi, Chris Bellamy, or the Church Collective. Can't wait to see you. Bye.